What do you get when you mix baseball and football?
Base footballs?
No. This is Bunts and Bruises. If it's the weekly hot topics in sports, we're talking about it.
We're talking about it.
And we're having fun. Your home for sports and entertainment. We're the best at rolling with the punches. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. This is Bunts and Bruises. And here's your host, Bars.
It's a beautiful day to talk sports. It is me, Bars. I am back. I apologize for the 2-week delay for the next episode. Well, last episode. The vid got me, guys. It was crazy. I went 2 years strong, and it got me. But, we're all good. We're all feeling better. We're back. But unfortunately, baseball isn't back yet. There's actually going to be an announcement on Thursday. Rob Manfred's going to make some big announcement. Most likely just going to say spring training's delayed, but my sources tell me it might be something bigger. Hopefully, man's stepping down. Fingers crossed. We'll see. We're not the biggest fan of him here in Bunts and Bruises, but welcome back to another beautiful night. It is I. We are here to talk mainly just the Bruises. We're going to get deep into my Giants. We've been meaning to do this for 2 weeks. Since the last episode, they made all the right moves. They hired the GM. They hired the head coach. They got the OC, the DC, the ACDC. It's electric over here in New York. That's exactly what's going on. But other than that, on the bunt side, not much to report besides what I said. It's literally the same exact since the last episode I had with Walker. We could talk a little more about free agents, but we're not going to do that. It's a different episode. I wanted to get a little into the Brian Flores, but that's getting crazy in itself. That's going to be another episode. So mainly just focusing on the Giants and, of course, the big game, the Super Bowl. LA Rams versus the Cincinnati Bengals. I should really say the Cincinnati Burrows because only reason they're in it. Joe Cool, Joe Ice, whatever you want to call him. Joe Schwayze, Mr. Swaggy. But speaking of Mr. Swaggy, Joe Schwayze, I got to bring in one of my closest friends. He's Swaggy, Schwayze himself. You about see him in his little fit right now. He's looking clean. He's going to make me look crusty, but it's all right. But he's another diehard Giants fan. He's actually met Jamal Adams, and funny story about that. Maybe we have time for him to talk about it. Always mention him, Mr. No Tipper Sports, as Mr. Anthony Brinkat. How you doing today, sir?
What's up, my man? Thank you for having me.
I'm glad to see you got your mic working this time. Beautiful. I'm going to blast you up.
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, man, glad to have you here, obviously. You know how it is here on Bunts and Bruises. We got to just get right into it, man, because last time we recorded, Giants had no GM, they had no head coach, and now we're wheels are turning right now. We're getting the staff going. We got the head coach. How are you feeling, man? What is the vibes right now in East Rutherford?
I'm feeling rejuvenated, to say the least. I feel like I have hope again. Like, I feel like we have a plan. Hopefully, it's a good plan. I'm feeling rejuvenated. We got some fresh blood in that office and on those sidelines, and I'm just praying things finally go in the right direction.
Yeah, man. Honestly, I wasn't sure how I felt about Joe Schoen at first. He was from the beginning, he was the favorite to be GM. Didn't read anything bad about him, but I wanted to go names left and right. I heard Bill Parcells talk to him, and that just threw me off a little because Giants way. I was thinking about it, but everything I hear right now is we made the right decision because you look at it. Adam Peters from the 49ers, he was the guy I was really high on. He hasn't even gotten the job yet, I believe. And that was really it. It was between them two. The third guy, I forgot who I said. Oh,
Ryan
I wanted that guy from, I didn't even want Ryan Poles, to be honest. I knew nothing about him. I wanted the guy from the Ravens, Hortez, whatever his name is. But
yeah.
Apparently, he isn't too hot either. So, what do I know, realistically, me with the podcast here? But I'm excited we got Shane, man. And it was obvious the moment we got Shane, that's why I wanted Peters, because it was Shane and Peters. They were the ones with the offensive guys. It was essentially a combo package. If you got one guy, you were getting the head coach as well. And that's exactly what happened here with Joe Schoen. We got Joe Schoen. It took me, let me tell you, the whole week I had COVID, it took me to learn that name because I was calling him Schoen. Sheehan,
Same here.
Shawani. I didn't even know how to pronounce it, but Joe Schoen. After I heard a couple people on the radio, and I got yelled at by a couple Giants fans, and it took honestly the coaching search took a little longer than I wanted. It took an extra week from when we hired him to hire the coach, but it was a man we thought all along. It was the guy who they interviewed on Zoom the day after he signed, and then they had the in person the next Monday, the day after the head coach lost the game. Which, by the way, he pitched a beautiful game. That one of the greatest games I ever seen. That Bills Kansas City playoff game, one of the
What
greatest games. That's the Super Bowl right there. Super Bowl won't even.
I've been saying that ever since then. Even though both those teams didn't make it to the Super Bowl, but I was saying that was the Super Bowl game right there.
Yeah, it was just literally offense back and forth. You got people talking about the overtime rules, which could be another episode in itself. But regardless, the moment he lost that game, which he did nothing wrong, he did as much as he could. He called every perfect play you could possibly call, and
Literally.
Gabriel Davis had like 3 touchdowns, 4 touchdowns, whatever it was.
Four tutties.
Either way, he called a beautiful game. And then Joe Schoen wasted no time, brought him back in for the in-person interview right on Monday. And it was then and there you kind of essentially knew he had the job. And there was a little speculation. Some people were worried, you and our other friend, and myself a little bit, because Dan Quinn, he had I wasn't really worried about Flores even before the lawsuit. It was more, I was worried about Dan Quinn. Because something about Dan Quinn, he just feels like more of a Mara guy. And it was honestly until that second interview, Dan Quinn pulled himself out once he knew he lost the Denver job. And once that second interview happened, he knew he didn't have the job. So once he was out, I had no doubt he was the coach. And here we are, very happy, because if you look at all the coaches that were left after that, what was that, the divisional round? After the divisional round, all the coaches left were all offensive-minded coaches. 2 coaches in the Super Bowl right now, offensive-minded coaches. What is your personal opinion about Brian Dable? How you feeling about him? Do you think we went the right way? Do you think you would still feel the same way if we had one of the defensive guys, or was there anybody else who possibly could have gave you the same feeling Brian Dable gave?
Before I get into Dable, I just want to say I think it's so important that we have Shane and Dable both locked in with the same vision. Like, that was my number one thing. I just wanted the GM and the head coach to be locked in. Same vision, same plan, same schemes, players, and I'm hoping they have that now. As for Dable, I am extremely excited. But I also just want to say I have a lot of friends, and I keep hearing people think it's just going to change overnight, or it's going to be a 1-year thing. This is going to take years with an S. Like, this is going to take time. Like, he's a great offensive mind. We all know that. Great offensive play caller. He develops quarterbacks extremely well. We all know this. But I just want to throw this out there. I haven't heard anybody mention this, but this has been on my mind personally. And I hate to compare, but just remember what Pat Shurmur did with Chase Keenum. Or was it Case Keenum? Jesus.
Case Keenum. You had it right the first
time. All right. So he turned him into a borderline stud, took that team to the NFC Chip, came here, did pretty good, if I'm being honest, play calling wise. Like, Jones had his best.
Hands down, his best season was his
I thought he was. We all thought he was the guy. We were like, "Wow, we have our quarterback. We had Eli. We just got blessed. We have another one." Like, we all thought this was the guy. But then we see that just because you're a great offensive mind and you're great at developing quarterbacks and working with QBs, it doesn't always translate to the success on the field when it comes down to wins. So my thing is, I want to see progress, whether it's Daniel Jones at quarterback, who I don't care who it is. It could be Tony. I could be Saquon at quarterback. As long as I see progression from the quarterback and the team, I'll be happy. As for year one, but I just want us fans to understand that this is going to take probably 2 to 3 years, just like it did with the Bills. Like, Shane came in, Brandon Beane took him underneath his wing. From what I've read and heard, Brandon Beane told the owners of the Bills, listen, this is going to take at least 2 years just to get the cap under control. Just the cap. So I'm expecting Shane to pretty much have the same approach. I think there's going to be a lot of trades, not necessarily cuts. I think he's going to try and get value out of his players, maybe like a Sterling Shepard or a Saquon, kind of like what Bean did with the Bills his first year when he unloaded Sammy Watkins, Marcel Darius, and that huge cap hit. Still found buyers, but as for Brian Dable, I'm just very excited. I love our coaches. I love our GM. I think we did a complete 1080 from this year to last year with the front office and the coaches. And I'm just really excited to see where he leads us. And I'm just hoping he's the guy.
See, I like that you mentioned how it's great that they're on the same mindset, that we got both of them straight from the Bills, because I'm not going to say it gives them a huge head start, but it definitely puts them at least a couple weeks ahead of where they would have been when trying to learn who that new guy you're working with, your new job. You feel a lot more comfortable bringing a guy you know and a guy you've worked with before. And not only that, but they both know how each other's minds work. So, I'm sure they had discussions outside of Brandon Bean being there and Sean McDermott where they just say, hey, what would you do if water cooler talk, let's call it.
Yeah.
Because that's what me and you do that for the Giants, and we're not even the GM and head coach. So I can only imagine working for an organization, you have those kind of talks happening. But also, it's it's perfect how you mentioned. It's going to take way more. It's not going to happen overnight. If we look semi-competent on offense, that's the most you should expect, because realistically, Daniel Jones, with him, all you were discovering this year is, I know we said it last year, this is the year to find out if he's the guy. This is easily, I'm not going to take that fifth year option. We're skipping ahead to a segment we're having later, but I'm not taking that fifth year option. And it's literally do or die. If you want to make some money, all right, I'll either franchise you, pay that extra $7 million. He's due, I believe it's $23 million if we take that fifth year option, and the franchise is going to fall around 30 somewhere. I'll franchise him, or you offer him that contract, because you want to have that salary cap manageable, like you said, and there's majority of the team we have right now, whoever is on a big contract, if we do become successful down the road, majority of them aren't going to be there. I believe James Bradbury, he's probably going to be a cap casualty. You're not going to see him this year, possibly. Sterling Shepard, I've been saying this before he even got injured, and now he got injured. It's over. He's gone. Saquon Barkley's gone. As much as I want to keep him, he's our only offensive weapon. Gone.
Same.
It's Kenny Galladay. It seems like that's just a marriage we gotta live with at that point. But exactly, it's just things that Dave Gettleman dug us in a hole. So right now it's getting out of the hole, and then after that, we just got to build something to grow off of, a foundation per se. Because if you look at the Bengals, I'm not expecting to kind of flip 2 years, go to the Super Bowl, but the only reason they made that kind of flip is because they got Joe Burrow. They got the most important piece. If you look at the rest of that team really doesn't deserve to be in the Super Bowl. But they got enough of the pieces to work, and they got the main piece, and his confidence is just taking them above and beyond. But we'll talk about that a little later. My main issue with what Giants fans are expecting is we're going to let's say we look like that first year with Pat Shurmur. If we look like that, I'd be ecstatic.
Me too.
Because if you look at the stats, the Giants had the 17th ranked offensive line that year. And every year since then, we've gotten only worse at offensive line. So I'm not trying to make excuses for Daniel Jones, but let's see what happens if we actually provide him with an offensive line. I have much more faith in Joe Schoen than Dave Gettleman, because Dave Gettleman was forced. The offensive coordinator was forced on Joe Judge. There was just a bunch of things that were forced. So now we got a football mind working with another football mind, and hopefully they get the talent we need. They clearly get the staff right now. It's going to take some time. It's going to take a lot of patience.
Yes, sir.
But speaking of patience, let's bring in a man who's been patiently waiting in the back. Honestly, I'm sick and tired of having this guest. He just keeps popping up for some reason, but whatever. Here he is. We're welcoming Jurg back to the show. Great to have you, I guess, or whatever. I don't know. He says he leaves, but he's been back for like 2 of the 4 shows in 2022.
You Bars, you could not live with your fear of failure. And where does that bring you? back to me.
I need you to
Uh,
edit. I need you to
it-
edit pods. I'm sorry.
it's good to be back, brother. It's always good to be back talking with you and back with Ant. Ant was
Yes,
on
sir.
the second to last episode, actually, before I left. So awesome to link with him again.
Yes, sir.
Wow,
My man
he
Jerry.
was. He was. But either way, so you got the biased Giants perspective. Let's hear a non just third party, has no fan of any team in the NFL, you weirdo. But either way, what's your opinion on how the Giants are doing this so far? And I forgot to mention the Giants officially they signed Mike Kafka, who was the passing quarterback coach for the Kansas City Chiefs, and Don Wink, I believe his first name's Don. Who knows? How do you get a nickname like Wink? That's the first question. But either way,
Winkler.
Wink Martindale is the defensive coordinator. So I feel like that's already a better pairing of a coaching staff than we provided Joe Judge, aside from Patrick Graham, who's great. Hope he does great in Las Vegas. Keep an eye out for them. But how do you think so far of the Giants' moves and Brian Dable and everything else?
I think on paper, and this is really the only thing we can grade this all on so far. I think the Giants are doing great on paper right now. I do like the Brian Daboll signing. I know a lot has happened off the field and unrelated to the Giants since, but we're obviously not going to get into that. I think the Brian Daboll signing just in a vacuum, I think it's a smart thing. I think this is a guy who played a key role in Josh Allen's development. Let's be real here. Like, a lot of people are trying to be apologists for how they analyze Josh Allen in his rookie season. I don't understand why. Like, let's be real here. Josh Allen was not good as a rookie. He wasn't great. Like, and everyone's like, "Oh, he this would have happened to any team." No, you put him in the wrong organization. You would have put Josh Allen on the wrong team that wasn't willing to be patient, that didn't know how to make sure his skill set would be maximized properly and used properly. This wouldn't have happened. But McDermott and Dayball and that coaching staff, but especially McDermott and Dayball, made sure to take care of their young quarterback as organizations should. Live with the growing pains, but continue to help him. And I think we forget about that. We forget how Josh Allen looked bad. We forget that sometimes some of those deep throws were inaccurate to his guys. We forget about that playoff game where he threw to his fullback who was double covered down the field. Like, that's a real thing. That I don't know why. Like, yes, Josh Allen plays like an MVP now, and he had this amazing playoff run. And it doesn't take away. But let's be real. Josh Allen coming in was not great. Let's just be honest. So now you bring Dayball, the guy who played a key role in that, over here to be the head coach. You bring in the quarterback's coach ever since Mahomes took over. We've seen what Mahomes has done since. Like, none of us need to go into detail here. Like, we know the resume that is there and what Kafka, Bieniemy, and Reed have done as a trio, helping Patrick Mahomes become who he is. Of course, naturally talented and gifted, but to me, I think with quarterbacks, coaches can help play a role. And I think those three have played some sort of role. And then Martindale, who's just, I think, with losing Patrick Graham, who I think that was a big loss, I think he not a bad guy to bring in. Pedigree, has coached really good defenses. You know, the Giants have good defensive backs. This is, a guy who's worked with great defensive backs. Look at what he's had in Baltimore for a while. Marlon Humphrey had one of the top corners in the game. Like, I think that was the right hire. So far, like, just A hires on paper on the board for the Giants this offseason. And in an offseason where we talk about getting better, like, until we get to the actual playing, like, this is what you need for the Giants. This is probably the best total coaching hire from head coach to OC to DC that they've had in quite a while.
Can't argue that. Cannot argue that. One thing I'd like to mention about Wink too is, well, aside from Patrick Graham, first thing with Patrick Graham is I'm kind of happy he didn't get the job. I was a big Patrick Graham fan because let's not forget what he did with that defense 2 years ago. Just this past season there was a whole other mess. You could tell that was probably in the locker room that caused that defense not to play as good as they did. But other than that, is getting rid of Patrick Graham also got rid of any that Cleveland Browns situation like 4 years ago with Hugh Jackson and the defensive coordinator there. I forget his name, where it was like a power struggle. And that I don't want none of that. So I'm kind of glad Patrick Graham's gone, because you would have had some defensive players looking at him like he's the leader, and like, you don't need that. We don't need any of that. So I'm glad he left. And Wink Martindale, he should have never got fired, if we're being completely honest. It's just the Ravens didn't make the playoffs. They didn't have the kind of year they wanted. It's mainly due to injury, but they needed to point the finger at somebody, and their defense had some of the most significant injuries, but also didn't perform the way they should have this year. So that's why he got the axe. But hey, their losses are a benefit. So, uh, talking about subtraction from addition, let's just talk about addition with addition. We got the number 5 and the number 7 picks. Number 5 and 7, correct? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
All right, we got the number 5 and the number 7 picks. There's a lot going on, a lot of rumors, some speculation. We may trade down one of those picks, which I would love. Even if we don't, I have zero issues taking 2 top 10 talents. Honestly, I think I might prefer the top 10 talents. It just depends what the trade for one of those picks would be. But Ant, out of those top 10 picks, what do you think the majority focus should be here for the Giants going into the draft?
Meaning, what positions need to be upgraded?
What do you think they should aim for when they? I mean, we need everything upgraded.
Yeah. Where do I start? Yeah.
What do you have as number 1 and number 2 essentially?
I mean, besides quarterback, of course. I would have to go with line. They got to improve that offensive line on both sides of the ball. Especially the offense. It's been like, listen, I'm 28 now. I don't think they've had a good line since I was like 17 years old. So, I'm not even exaggerating. Like, we're talking a really long time. A lot of failed experiments with like Eric Flowers, Nate Soldier. I think we have one in Andrew Thomas. I think that's our left tackle for the next 10 to 12, hopefully. I think they need to go out, just keep adding to it, get a right tackle. I like Evan Neal a lot. Slide him to the right if he's there. Don't know if he's going to be there. But from what I know, this is a very strong offensive line draft, especially on the offensive side of the ball. There's a lot of talent. But just in general, they just need talent. I don't care if it's Kyle Hamilton, who's a safety, I'm not a huge Kyle Hamilton fan. We have a good secondary, but if he's legit, if they think he's a impact player,
I
wouldn't be mad if they traded down.
The last safety that went top 5 and ended up in New York made you pay for his dinner to get an autograph, all right? Where I don't need a top 5 safety in New York. Safeties are not difference makers, okay? You're
right.
You know what? You're getting muted for such a comment, sir. So, as I was saying, I think, Jurg, before we get into your opinion, I think we need to go line, and some more line. Whether it's offensive, whether it's defensive, I just need some actual hog mollies, which was Dave Gettleman's objective when he came to New York. But apparently he never got it done. Like Ant said, he didn't have the Eric Flowers. He inherited him, but regardless, that was a failed lineman. Nate Solder, overpaid, failed. Everyone knew when that contract was signed, it was the worst contract you could sign. Because coincidentally, I forgot who the guard was from Carolina. That guy was, I think he ended up going to Jacksonville. But either way, that guy was the guy who ended up got the most paid. You got Patrick. People forget this. He signed Patrick Omawala, I think his name was. Completely butchered it, but it's okay. He didn't even end up finishing the year for the Giants that year. And just a bunch of these prospects in the 3rd round, like Michael Purr and Shane Lemieux, who aren't bad, but they're not. And they got worse as years went on. Look at Will Hernandez, who looked like a stud. We thought we had our guard the first year he came back, and now he's looking like I could get rid of him easy, no problem. Also, we could have signed Whitworth. We could have signed Zeitler, but we had to trade for him. It's just there were so many mistakes there on the defensive line. So, honestly, the guy I want going number 5, if Thibodeau isn't there, because apparently a lot of mock drafts have him dropping, which I don't see how. But if we don't have an edge rusher there, I want Tyler Lindenbaum, the Iowa center, first. Center next 10 years. There's arguments he could be the number 1 offensive lineman in general over Neal and the other kid from NC State. Regardless, I just want line, and some more line. Jurg, what do you think?
All about the offensive defensive line here, boys. I don't mind it. I really don't. I agree with you guys. I think the Giants need to prepare for the next quarterback in waiting. Let's be real. Like, everyone that I know that knows football, everyone that I know that knows quarterbacks is saying that this is not the most likely draft class to get your franchise quarterback in. And I can see it. I definitely understand why. The guys here, like, some of them have potential. Some of them can be explosive. Some of them show a little bit of something, but not of past years. So why waste time? Why throw a rookie into the flames? Why baptize them by fire? And let's Let's just build the team around them. Do what Detroit is doing. Because I don't think Detroit's going quarterback this year either, honestly. I think Jared Goff has at least another year as a stopgap there. They're going to keep on building that squad over in Detroit. I think the Giants need to do the same thing. Bars, you said it yourself just before I came on. This team needs everything. Like, I said this a while back. If I was the Giants GM, I'm being real with the owner. Like, that entire team needs to be blown up. Except maybe the defensive backfield, but everything else needs to be blown up. And we've already seen it this offseason. It's a new GM, new head coach, new offensive coordinator, new defense coordinator, new staff, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Like, this team needs a complete overall 100-point restoration. You need a new quarterback. I'm sorry, Saquon. You need a new running back. You need to figure something out with that receiving core because something's just not clicking well when there's supposed to be some talented guys there. Tight end, Evan Ingram's there. Do I need to say anything else? The offensive line needs a little bit of work.
He's gone. He's a free agent. Thank God.
Was there. Let me say that. Defensive line needs work. Linebacking core needs some work. There's key pieces. The problem is it's not just 22 starters. It's 53 roster players. So this entire team needs an overhaul. So what they could do with their picks, I think you guys are hitting it right on the money. I think with one of those first 2 picks and probably with the 5th pick, I think offensive tackle is the way. Evan Neal, I know, is a very popular name, but you kind of mentioned him in passing, James. Ikem Inoku from North Carolina State. I've seen some tape from the kid recently. That kid's physical. He's
happy with
freak.
That.
Him at number 5 or 7, it really all depends on how the offensive tackles are valued here. Because I don't think, correct me if I'm wrong, James, I don't know if this is as strong as an offensive tackle class as it was last year in particular. I know these are like the top 2. Like Penei Sewell was the guy, and then it was a bit of a drop off. These 2, it's a little bit closer, but then what do you think of that next group of guys? So I think for the Giants, I know a lot of people said 2 top 10 picks in a draft class without a quarterback is not a great thing. I actually don't think so. I think that this is a draft class to go after the other positions on your team. I think the offensive tackle needs to be one of those positions because I think the offensive line itself needs work, but you have these later picks. The rest of the Giants picks, they got 36, 67, 80, 109, 145, and 170. I think you could get some pretty good guards in the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th round, particularly that 3rd, 4th, and 5th round of this draft, that if you work on them, if you let them marinate, I think could become something. So I think offensive line is certainly something this team needs to go after. And then with that other pick, I mean, defense, it's really all about, are you somehow going to get lucky? I really don't understand how some people are saying Kayvon Thibodeau could potentially drop.
No idea. How's Texans pass him? Like, I just don't get it. It makes 0 sense to me.
I cut 6 VOs today of that dude. I saw a lot of footage of him. I don't see. Now, granted, he didn't have the junior year that a lot of people probably would have expected. I don't see how you don't take him with a top 5 pick in this draft. I just don't see how a team doesn't do that. Now, if the Giants can get lucky and they could get blessed and they actually do somehow get him, more power. More power to the organization. But assuming he's going to be off the board, what do you do with the defensive line? Do you try to get some more pass rushing in there? Azeez Ojulari had a good rookie season with 8 sacks, but there's never such a thing as not enough pass rush on the team. Check back with this year's Super Bowl, check back with last year's Super Bowl winner. Like, there's no such thing as enough pass rush. So could you go with one of the other pass rushers in this draft class? Do you maybe go with a defensive lineman, a D tackle more so? That could be Jordan Davis out of Georgia. The kid, not a lot of sack numbers, but my God, he can eat up interior linemen and force your defensive star pass rushers into more one-on-one scenarios. And of course, playing a key role in a national championship winning team, that's always a plus on the resume. And I think that's where you have to go with the top picks. I think the thing with the Giants is, what are you going to do with the depth picks that you have here? This is the true test of a GM. You can hit, well, you can also miss. You can hit on your 1st round pick. You can hit on your 2nd round pick. What are you going to do in that 3rd, 4th, and 5th round? A while back, when Spielman of the Minnesota Vikings got fired, we had a little debate in the Off the Ball Network group chat about his tenure. And overall, some of the guys were like, oh, his draft classes, you got Dalvin Cook, you got Justin Jefferson, et cetera, Daniil Hunter, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, he got me one guy from a draft class. What about the rest of the picks? You're telling me you're going to go 1 for 10 in your drafts constantly? Yes, he hit. Yes, he got Justin Jefferson. Yes, he got Dalvin Cook. Let's be real here. Can you really miss with those guys? Come on now. Like, yes, he got some of these guys. What did he do with the rest of those picks? If I'm giving you 10 picks, which the Giants have kind of close to that number, like they got 9, 10 picks in this draft class. Like, you need to hit on more than just one. You need to hit on more than just these top 2. Like, you need to have other roster players. And that's where I think the importance of this draft class is for the Giants. here. I don't know how much detail you want to get into it. I don't have like super deep detail, but I have a couple names here that we can get into of like who they could potentially go after with some of these later picks. But like, I'm just saying the focus of this scouting department needs to be on these late picks. Like the long-term future of this team, this draft class can be a good base, and you don't build a good base with just one block. You build it with several. So let's not waste any time. Let's have a good first draft class here.
I'm glad you mentioned those middle picks because if you look at the Giants the past 10 years, that's exactly where we fumbled the ball completely. We have none of those prospects. We have no bench depth because even those 4th, 5th round picks who they don't end up starters, but they end up as a good rotational player. Those help make Super Bowl teams no
Oh
matter
yeah.
what. Those guys get contracts. That was the biggest issue. That's why Jerry Reese got fired, aside from the fact that he couldn't do a great first round pick. He couldn't do anything deeper into the draft. And that's why David Gettleman retired as well because he couldn't get the middle of the draft either. If you look at what's his name, Rhodes X-Man, he's not even in the lineup anymore. He can't even find a spot for it to get rotated in because that's how bad it is. Patrick Graham wanted nothing to do with him, and then the next year we take what's his name, Carter, whoever. Carter, is it Carter?
Lorenzo Carter.
Lorenzo Carter?
Carter. We take Carter, who plays the same exact position. Like, that's a waste of a pick. You're replacing the pick you made last year with the pick you're making this year, and that's how you just end up in the hole we're at. So I'm glad you mentioned that, Jerg, and I'm sure Ant could agree with me. What also, now you mentioned that, I haven't done a deep dive into the draft. I only have a little bit of my draft info, but from what I've been reading, is the edge rusher is one of the deepest. Not even just edge rusher, defensive line is one of the deepest positions in this draft. Aside from the top 2 guys in Hutchinson and Thibodeau, everything else, that's where it's kind of a toss up. It's a little more. It's kind of flipped how it was last year. If you remember my draft rankings, where offensive line you had your top 2 talents, and everyone else it was a mixed batch, and defensive line it was just mixed batch. This year it's offensive mixed batch. Defensive, you got your studs and then a mixed batch after that, who all could be good. So with that second round, you get edge rusher. I would not be mad if the Giants went offensive line 5th pick, offensive line 7th pick, because you could right there. You have Andrew Thomas, and then you have 3 cornerstones of offensive line for like the next 10 years if you make the right pick.
I want to open. Hold on, I have a quick question here, James, because I'm curious. You mentioned it very briefly before. So the Giants, we know there's going to be some cap casualties on this roster, whether it be by cuts or trades. James Bradbury is a name that I've seen, that I've even seen from reports that likelihood he's a prime candidate to get cut or traded. I think he should be traded because I think a team would take a James Bradbury personally. I know I would. Like top caliber corners don't come around every once in a while. So like, why not go after that if you're a relatively good team? Do you consider Derek Stingley Jr. with the 7th pick? Like, let's say you get your offensive tackle with that 5th pick. Do you consider Stingley with that 7th overall pick? Because I know he had a down year this past year, but like since 2019, like I've seen articles about the kid since 2019. Everyone is raving of like of the LSU corners the last 3 to 5 years, he could be the best of them all. Now I know that's predominantly based off of potential, but do you take that risk with a talent like that, with a kid like that, and give him to Don Martindale, who, as we said, worked with Marlon Humphrey?
I mean, I personally wouldn't. I don't know how Ant feels about it. We could ask him right after. I personally wouldn't, though, just because, one, from what I've heard, the kid has a odd injury history. It might just be bad luck, but I don't like taking an injury chance with those top 10 picks. And number 2, we've spent so much draft capital into the secondary the last 4 or 5 years, and we always get the injured DBs as well. So that's just, it's a lot of PTSD I'm having right now. But other than that, I feel like, yes, corner is an impact position, but it's one of those positions where you want to try it out the second round, I'm with it. You want to try it in the mid rounds, I'm with it. Right now, I need more of a foundational game-changing piece, such as an edge, alignment, even the wide receiver from UCLA. I don't want to go that route, but if they take him, I'd understand why they take him. Man, how do you feel about it?
That's a good point, and it's funny because I was thinking the same thing earlier today. Because deep down, Wink he's gonna want a guy on that side of the ball, whether it's a corner, whether it's an edge rusher. I personally don't think I would. I don't want to take that risk. I haven't seen a highlight on YouTube. I've seen him play live. I know he's a good player, but the injury concerns just scare me away a little bit too much. But it's funny because knowing the way Wink likes to play, his schemes involve a lot of pressure and he relies on his corners. Bradbury, like Jurg said, in my opinion at least, is like a top 10 corner. Um, I think if Wink wants to have this defense play at the highest potential, they might need to keep Bradbury or even go and sign someone to play next to Odori Jackson. But to answer that specific question, I think I would stay away. Like James said, go after offensive line, go after defensive line, stay away from the corner, hit that maybe round 3, round 4, maybe next year. We're not that close yet, so just stay away from that kid.
I'm just curious because I think the thing with the Giants, like I said earlier, because at least in my mind, so many of these positions are up for grabs. I think you have the discourse and wonder what a guy could be if you get your hands on him. And I think Stingley Jr. I think he's a guy that certain teams, maybe it shouldn't be the Giants, but I think a team is going to take a risk on him in the later portions of the top 10.
I agree.
6 through 10, even like 11, 12, 13, because like the kid, yeah, it's been a little bit weird with his history at LSU. Like I can't describe it either, James. It has been weird, but I kid you not, since his freshman season, hell, since his high school senior year, I've heard everyone say he's going to be the best defensive back coming out through the LSU system in years. Like just based off of all the traits, all the intangibles, all that kind of stuff that people talk about. Like I have heard so much about this kid to the point where it's like I feel like it'll only ever be boom or bust when it comes to a guy like that. Either he's going to be like a Pro Bowl caliber corner or he's just not. So, and I'm also curious because of the cap casualty situation, because I think the Giants are going to have cap casualties in this offseason. I think and it's not even just by should they not? No, they kind of have to. Like a good chunk of teams in the NFC are going to go through cap casualties. The Packers, the Cowboys, their division rival, the Giants themselves, like it's so much to the point where it's like, I really, really wonder here, like, if you consider it. But I also don't blame you guys. I think at the end of the day, like the safest picks, we talked about this in the past, James, especially last year's draft class. The safest picks are offensive line and defensive line. And to your point, James, this is the complete opposite. Like there were some good pass rushers and defensive line prospects I felt last year. I think this year is actually even better because I've heard a lot of people say that like for a lot of these guys in the right situations, like some of these players, like you could take a second rounder, kid will become a potential starter like halfway through their rookie seasons. Like this class has some guys who can make impacts at some point within the first 2 to 3 years of their career. And that's what you want with a draft class like this. That is what you want.
Yeah, and I mean, if you look at it, Ojulari, we took him in the second round. He's looking like a great starter. So it's not like, and we have the 36th pick, I believe, in the second round. Correct me if I'm wrong. That's basically a first round pick.
Yeah.
Come on.
You essentially have 3 first round picks.
You mentioned Dalvin Cook. I'm pretty sure Dalvin Cook went 36. I'm not even lying. So it's like, you get starters right off the bat like that. So before we wrap it up with the Giants, this was sent to me by a friend earlier in this week. I forget your reaction, Ant, so I'm going to ask it to you again. I think we actually disagreed. It was a trade offer. We mentioned QBs. It was for Kenny Pickett, and it was a rumor circulating that Pittsburgh wants to move up. And if they're going to move up, they're either going to trade up to us or they're going to trade up to the Jets because every team behind us needs a QB. So Pittsburgh receives the 5th overall pick and a 6th round pick, and New York receives the 20th pick, the 52nd pick, which would be their second round pick. It's like a 20th pick in the second round. Next year's first round pick and Devin Bush. Would you take that offer? You said you would, right? Or you wouldn't, Ant?
I never said I would or I wouldn't. I just was saying how if you could swap Bush, who I was huge, I was the biggest Devin Bush fan in college. Like I thought this kid was just all world talent. Still like him a lot and whatnot. If you could swap that maybe to like another second round pick, I'd probably jump on that. But I mean, I just want them to trade down so bad and just pick up more assets because that's what we need. We need more assets and we need to hit on these picks. So I want more assets to give us more opportunities to hit on these picks because we need to hit on these 3rd round picks, 4th round picks, and whatnot. But to answer that question, for that exact trade, after having time to think about it, I'd probably wouldn't.
Okay, so let's say Devin Bush becomes next year's second round pick. Do you take the trade?
I'm definitely considering it a lot more. Yeah, I'd probably do it though.
See, that's where we kind of disagree. Let's just say instead of Devin Bush, it's a second round pick. The reason I disagree with that is that's not enough, in my opinion, to go from 20 to the fifth round. Because realistically, we're only gaining 2 second rounds and a first round pick. Like, yes, you have this year's first round pick, but that's not gaining a pick. That's just you're dropping the number for a top 5 pick. If they really think this is the guy, then you got to pay more. We got a first round pick last year for a team to move up 8 spots and not in the top 10. We're talking about the 5th overall pick, so in my opinion, you got to pay at least 2 firsts, a second, and like 2 thirds maybe. Jared, what do you think? Do you think that Giants should take that? I'll just to read the trade one more time. The 5th overall and the 6th round pick of the Giants goes to Pittsburgh, and the Giants receive the 20th overall, the 52nd overall, 23 first round pick, and a 23 second round pick.
So you're saying it's just to clarify the trade, it's 2 firsts, 2 seconds, and Devin Bush for the 5th pick.
Technically, it's 1 first because one of the firsts is this year's first.
Mm-hmm.
You got me?
So yeah.
You're moving that. So technically, you're only getting 1 additional first and 2 additional seconds.
Right. Yeah, that part I just want to clarify. Man, it's 10th. If this was Devin Bush right after his rookie season, man, how would you actually say no to that deal?
Yeah, see, that's a different story.
Rookie season, he was a different level. He was predicting that he would make these plays and all the things would go right and they would win the games. Like Devin Bush was a different beast. He just was. But second year tears his ACL, missed a couple games this season. He only played in 14 games. What wasn't bad, but he didn't make the same impact that he did. Like, remember that draft class? The Steelers actually traded up, something they rarely do. The Steelers traded up for Devin Bush in that draft class with the Denver Broncos to get Devin Bush, to select him. And I think Devin Bush has still been a pretty good player. Like him, I always joke about it. That draft class that produced 2 great linebackers with the first name Devin Bush and Devin White, and we know how amazing Devin White is from the Bucs Super Bowl run last year alone. But at the same time, because of this drop off, I do question it. Like, my thing is, I don't hate the idea of getting a player such as Devin Bush back. I really don't. But I kind of have to agree with you here, Bars. I think there's 2 risks here, and it's the risk of, can Devin Bush play like he did closer to his rookie season, or at least play better than what he did this past year? And since he played for the most part this season, I think I'm not concerned about the second year injury because he came back and played 14 games this season. My concern is, can he return to that level of electric play? And also, do you potentially miss out on one or both of the offensive linemen if you make that deal, like the offensive tackles? That's my fear personally. That would be my fear, because I think if you're the Giants, you cannot risk. If you do trade down one of those picks, I actually do like Ant's idea of, while I truthfully believe in quality over quantity, I think this could be the case where it's because you have already a top 5 or 7 pick still in there, depending on which pick you trade, you can still get a high quality player here. But the problem is that do you risk losing one of those offensive tackles? Because let's be real here. The guard depth, the center depth, I think you could get guys in the mid-round. You need to get one of these offensive tackles early in this draft. You have to. And it's one of those 2 guys. And the 5th pick, that's kind of a scary proposition here when it comes to that. And also, it's for Pittsburgh, I think you can wait a little bit for these quarterbacks. I really do. Now, I know
he's straight from their backyard, man.
I know
the kid
rumors,
more than us.
I know the rumors are circulating and all that, but it's just, I think you can wait on some of these quarterbacks, man. I think if you're trading up in this draft class for one of these quarterbacks, it's that is the definition of boom or bust. It's what happened with Jared Goff and Carson Wentz, with the Rams trading up to the 1st overall pick for Jared Goff and the Eagles trading up to the 2nd overall pick for Carson Wentz. You take a lot of risk with guys like that, because remember, that draft class, not a strong draft class. We ended up making the top 2 picks in that draft, the quarterbacks. They probably shouldn't have been looking that. Now, I'm not saying it's going to end up in that situation. Jacksonville, if they do trade back, I don't think the team trading back would be looking for a quarterback. At least they shouldn't. Again, this is not the quarterback draft to use a top 5 pick. They shouldn't trade back either. Let's be real here. You could get an all-world talent here with either of these picks. So it's that would just be my thing. The fear of it. If you are the Giants of losing out one of those tackles, you cannot risk doing so because this is not. You kind of mentioned them very early on in the show here, James, but this is not a Cincinnati Bengals Joe Burrow situation. There ain't no Joe Cool on this roster. It's Danny Fumbles on this roster. You're not a Jamar Chase away on that offense from suddenly making it to the wild card if you're the Giants. You're not. So you need to build up this team. You need to, mitigate any potential risk factors. Like, I'm not against the trade down, but you got to secure your assets. If I'm going to trade one of these picks, I'm trading the 7th overall pick personally down to get a little bit more in one of these deals. I don't know if I want to trade that 5th pick because I think with the 5th pick, you'll get one of those offensive tackles for sure. I think with the 7th pick, there's a little bit more because who's to say a team doesn't trade up
exactly
for one of those offensive tackles? Who's to say? Because we criticized them so much last year for not picking him. The Cincinnati Bengals could just go all in and say, we'll trade you 2 firsts, 2 seconds, and a 3rd and get a top 5, top 6 pick and get one of those tackles.
I'll do that.
Because they don't need quarterback. They don't need receiver. They don't need running back. On defense, they have Trey Hendrickson. They have a lot of people criticize them. Granted, Eli Apples is
I was about to say, I don't want to hear nothing about Eli
But
Apple.
I'm just saying the defensive back crew, like aside from him, Mike Hilton's a great veteran. Jesse Bates is really good safety.
Best safety in the league. I don't care what anyone says.
Like the Bengals, actually, if you really look at their roster, they have really good pieces there.
They do.
You could take that risk of trading up for an offensive tackle if you are Cincinnati this year with your late round pick. Now, granted, convincing a team in the top whatever to go into the 2nd or last pick in the draft, like that's a lot, and you're gonna have to give up a lot. But I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility personally. So I'm just saying, like, if you're the Giants, I want safety, I want security, I want to keep my 5th overall pick.
That's what I'm saying. Let's give me 2 top 10 talents. I'll buy the jerseys immediately.
Oh yeah,
but we dug enough into the Giants. We'll dig more later, probably next week. I can't get enough of my Giants. Maybe we can do a Giants podcast. Who knows? But regardless, we're here. It's Bunts and Bruises.
You gonna get another new intro?
Yeah, you're gonna edit that one for me too.
That is never gonna get played.
Exactly. Don't understand now. Either way, we're back. We're talking Super Bowl now. You mentioned Joe Schoen and versus Odell, whatever. I don't even like them. I hope they lose. I want Stafford to win, but honestly, strictly because of Odell, I hope they lose. Either way, it is the LA Rams hosting. I mean, they're not hosting, but technically they're hosting. It's the 2nd year in a row where the team who's hosting, the city who's hosting the Super Bowl has their team playing in it. It's kind of crazy if you really think about it. But what is your opinion on this game, man? You think we're going to have a good game? You think it's going to be a blowout? Some people don't know what to expect here, man. And honestly, I'm a little worried about a blowout because you got just so many pass rushers on LA's side. And you got, arguably the number 1 lockdown man-to-man defensive back in Jalen Ramsey. And arguably the best player in this game is Aaron Donald, who is arguably the best player in all of the sport. So this is just, I know people have said it the whole playoff run, all season. Just this isn't a defense Cincinnati Bengals have seen. So is this going to be a blowout, or is Joe Schoen going to keep his cool and we're going to have a great game? What do you think?
You couldn't have said it any better. I've been asking myself the same exact questions. I don't even know what to expect personally because like everything you just said, I think about it and I'm like Aaron Donald, Von Miller, Leonard Floyd, who nobody even talks about because they're so stacked on that side of the ball. They have Jalen Ramsey on Chase. So and that line is the Bengals line is horrible. So I just look at that and I'm like, is this going to be a blowout? Like, is this going to be one of those like 30 to like 10 games or 20 to whatever games? Like, but Joey Burrow is that guy, man. That boy, he's swaggy. He's marketable. Like, Joey Burrow is that guy. Young Tom Brady GOAT in the making. I'm obsessed with the guy. I just think he's got everything that you want in a superstar. I think it's going to be listen, I think the Bengals are a second half team. So I think if the Rams are up a little bit in the first half, I would expect the Bengals little run. I'm torn, man, but I'm rolling with the Rams. I think the Rams are gonna win. I'm gonna throw some money on the Rams. I love Odell Beckham. I don't know about this guy over here. This guy had one interview with Lil Wayne, and I love Odell Beckham.
Why
Right?
was Wheezy there?
I
Why?
love I love
Why was
Odell.
Wheezy there? There was no reason for Wheezy to be there. He wasn't there to be a different story. Why was Wheezy there? No
Listen,
explanation to that.
me personally, I just think I think what a lot of things are gonna come down to too is like, okay, Cooper Cup is gonna be obviously the main focus of the Bengals on defense, but I think Odell want Eli Apple one-on-one, like all game, like yeah, that's just we just eating out here. That's just free course Thanksgiving meal in February. Like I don't see how the Bengals are gonna fully stop Sean McVay and that offense, and then you got that pass rush to go along with it. So I mean, I'm rolling with the Rams. I think it'll be like a 27-20 game, something like that. But I'm going with the Rams and get Odell that ring, baby. Get my boy Odell that ring.
Mm-mm. Oh man, I got nothing to say to you. Either way, see, the only argument I got against that is everyone said the same exact thing about the Kansas City Chiefs. How is Cincinnati going to stop them? You got arguably the best quarterback in the game. You got the fastest wide receiver in the game. You got the best tight end ever in history of NFL. You got one of the greatest offensive minds in your head coach. How are they going to stop them? And like you said, their second half team, it wasn't looking good in the first half. So I mean, if we could get a game like we got last week with Kansas City and the Bengals, I think that'd be a great game. But they'll just. I'm trying to make an excuse for the Cincinnati defense, and I can't even think about it. They play zone. I don't know. You're saying Eli Apple, and I'm like, yeah, he's gonna get cooked, man. I don't see how. So I'm guessing they just throw the double on Odell with Jesse Bates. Who knows? Who knows? Jerk. I know you're trying to save your Super Bowl pick for another podcast because apparently we don't have the contract or whatever. Regardless, what is your insight on this Super Bowl? On any points we may have missed?
So a couple points I want to make here first. Ant, you mentioning Odell and this one with the whole Wheezy thing, since
Why was
day
he there?
one of the effing show,
Why was
I've
he
had
there?
to deal with him saying that. Since
Why was he
day
there?
goddamn one. I've
Why?
never cared about it. I forgot that
Why?
actually even happened. And
Why
it's
was
always
he
brought
truth.
back to me with him. It's
He
always
spoke
brought
the
back to
truth.
me with him.
Weezy didn't even be there though. He didn't even say anything.
So aside from that, we let though.
Why?
Okay, show's going off the rails here. Now, let's think about this here, boys. Couple things. So first, the idea of what this game could be. If you go to the amazing Jeff Hunt, the podfather of the Off the Ball Network, earlier in the week we actually did an episode on some of the greatest Super Bowls we saw. And one thing that Jeff talked about in that episode was the unknown of this game and what it could become. This could become a back and forth Super Bowl where once again the Bengals defy all odds and expectations and keep this a close game. Now, for selfish purposes, I really hope this ends up being a blowout because I want to get my sleep because I have to go into work the next day. So please,
What a
Los Angeles
terrible
Rams,
person. What a terrible
please win
person
this game
you
by
are.
20 or 30 so I can go to sleep early. Please. Now,
I hope. You know what? I
terms
hope
of
they
points to
get
this
blown
game.
out by like 24
In terms
in
of
the
points
first
to this
half,
game.
and you go, oh, "All right, game's over." You turn it off, go to sleep, and you wake up to see the Simpsons were right and that the Bengals win 33-31. By the way, I'm putting all my money on the Bengals because the Simpsons made an episode about it. Just
Smart
saying.
man. Now, analysis of this game. Here's the difference between the Rams and the Chiefs. We talked about how the Bengals would deal with that Kansas City offense. That's not the question here. We're talking about how the Bengals are going to deal with the defense because you can say whatever you want. You could say that Chris Jones is really good. You could say that Tennessee had a much better defense than they did last year, and they did. And the Vegas Raiders had some good pass rush. They have not seen the animals on this Rams defensive line yet. There is not a player on the previous three teams whose legacy sniffs what Von Miller has accomplished in this league, a former Super Bowl MVP. Leonard Floyd, that you mentioned, and former top 10 pick in Chicago, people viewed him, he was done. He was a bust. Goes to LA. Now, yes, does it help being next to Aaron Donald? Yes, but he's put up double-digit sack seasons. He was not a guy that the Rams were like, you know what? No, we don't want to keep him. They made that choice with Dante Fowler. They were like, yeah, you could go away. Leonard Floyd's like, no, we're going to keep you here. And of course, y'all already said it. the centerpiece. He demands double teams. He demands triple teams. Heck, the Bengals could send all 5 offensive linemen on him, and he's probably still going to somehow get past all 5 of them. Aaron Donald is the best defensive player of this generation. Sorry, J.J. Watt. He is one of the best defensive players of all time. I heard it in a piece about him earlier this week at work. There's one stop when Aaron Donald's career is over. Canton, Ohio. It's as simple as that. It is as simple as that. The Bengals have not faced this kind of team. And I said this earlier in the week, actually, on that same Jeff Flint podcast. If the Rams sack them 9 times, that's not going to be a field goal game. This Rams team is not going to waste 9 sacks unlike a certain other quarterback did, unlike a certain other team did. They're not going to do that. This offense will not waste that opportunity if their defense gives it to them, because their defense has given them a bunch of opportunities this season. And yes, there have been some mistakes here and there, but this team, the wonder kid that is Sean McVay, they have delivered when it has mattered the most. They came back against San Francisco as well. So we're talking about being able to come back here. The Los Angeles Rams have already proven to us that they can come back in games and win them. They defeated the defending Super Bowl champions. Like, the mentality of this Rams team is just completely different from every other single team. And you talked about what the Bengals did differently. What the Bengals did, James, is that they played the defense that kept fooling the Kansas City Chiefs throughout the regular season. They played that 2 high safety defense, and they forced Patrick Mahomes to make plays. And Patrick Mahomes, for some reason, fell back into the whole, I got to go for home runs here, especially that cost them at the end of the game. Matthew Stafford and this team has absolutely no issue taking the intermediate and the short routes. He could pass the ball to Cooper Kupp 5 yards in front of him, and Cooper Kupp is going to take it 20 yards.
Right there.
He's going to take it 20 yards plus. Odell Beckham Jr. is great in the intermediate, especially in these playoffs. He has been a phenomenal receiver for this team. They have the running game. Sean McVay is cut from the same cloth as Kyle Shanahan. Literally, they were on the same coaching staff together. He can get his guys to run the ball well. Like, this Rams team, if the Bengals cannot try that defense and fool them, like, the Rams actually have the scheming to be able to counteract that. So for the Bengals, like, this is, I mean, maybe you're going based off just offense. Yeah, sure, the Chiefs are the most overwhelming, but I think combined, this is the most overwhelming opponent that they faced so far.
The one point I got against you right there is you've noticed throughout the entire season, you can't argue it. The moment that the Rams are moving and they're flowing and Matt Stafford making throws, getting comfortable, he gets too comfortable. And he makes mistakes right there. He starts letting it rip a little bit, starts being the cowboy we've seen him in Detroit. And he leaves himself vulnerable to, honestly, a lot of easy picks if you can get him. But that was his biggest issue going into the playoffs right now, was a lot of people were getting upset of the turnovers. So we've seen Cincinnati take advantage of reckless throws, a la Tannehill, who is not a top 10 quarterback. Hope you're watching, Walker. Thanks for making me lose money. Also, we've seen them take advantage of Kansas City doing it. We saw Patrick Mahomes hand over the game not once, but I mean, Eli Apple could have ended the game right there, but no, he had to fumble the ball. And then Patrick Mahomes handed it over to, a secondary man who could handle the ball. Regardless, that is the one thing. But no,
seriously, do you think Sean McVay is going to let those mistakes happen? Because Sean
McVay doesn't throw the ball though. Yes,
no, but
Sean
I'm saying game planning.
We
talk about game planning. No. We talk about game planning because Matthew Stafford, while he's obviously more dynamic than Jared Goff, Matthew Stafford knows, this is the most brilliant coach I have ever had in my career.
And he still makes those mistakes when he gets comfortable.
Yes, he does.
It doesn't matter what the coach is.
You're telling me if the Rams go up by 2 touchdowns in this game, you're telling me that Stafford is just going to shut out Sean McVay? That's not going to happen.
He doesn't shut. If he's been, you're getting cut off. If he's been playing with Sean McVay all season and he still has been making those errors, what is going to prevent him from the biggest game of his life? Yes, you're right. Guess what? He's never been at this part in his career. He's just as green in this game as Joe Burrow. The whole playoff run he just had, just as green as Joe Burrow. So there is no guarantee that Matthew Stafford will not make those mistakes. And you were trying to get a point across?
Honestly, no. I'm just sitting back watching. I'm just sitting back watching what you guys are saying. You guys are over here preaching. I like both of your points. One thing that none of us mentioned right here was also the Rams are home. Like, they're sleeping in bed. Their wives are serving them breakfast in bed. Like, they're comfortable. And I think one thing that we're all also taking for granted a little bit is this is McVay's second go around, and I think was it 4 seasons, if I'm not mistaken. That's gonna help him. Like, it's gonna help him prepare, know how to spend those 2 weeks off and whatnot. I just listen. The Rams. I'm all in on the Rams. Like I don't know anywhere to put it. I'd put the mortgage on it if I could. Rams, baby.
The most interesting thing is also like McVay versus Taylor. Like we talk about McVay being the wonderkid, and now he's facing one of his disciples. The last time the Bengals were actually in the Super Bowl, which was against the San Francisco 49ers, their head coach was a Bill Walsh disciple, and Bill Walsh was the head coach of the 49ers. So it's like history is repeating itself. Apparently, the Bengals can only make the Super Bowl when their head coach is the disciple of the opposing head coach. It's a weird trend. I'm just saying. And also, funny trends, fun facts here. You mentioned Bars, second straight year in a row that the host team is now going to be playing at home. That never happened before last season. Like the Bucs were the first year. Now we got it 2 years in a row here, which is absolutely wild.
And it took a free agent quarterback coming in the offseason to make it happen. Both times.
Free agent with Brady and a trade with the Lions, with the Rams Lions for Stafford.
And they both went from somewhere cold as hell to somewhere warm as hell. It's crazy, man. It's crazy. Either way, so real quick, I'm picking the Bengals. Ant over here is taking the Rams. Jerg seems like he's taking the Rams. He won't tell us. He's saving it for another podcast, but he's taking the Rams, it seems like. Other than that, boys, we got any last-minute comments you want to talk about on the Super Bowl? All right. Well, Ant, I'm going to give you
one question. Here's my one question. Does anybody truly think, because I love the odds on this, Aaron Donald, Super Bowl MVP,
$20
plus
1,600?
Plus
1600.
Put money
$20 on it.
Little $10 when you won 70. You know, it's worth it, I think.
This is the way I'm going to put it. If you guys really think it's going to be a blowout the way you're saying it was a blowout, last time we've seen a blowout like that was the Seahawks versus the Broncos.
Last year was a blowout.
Legion of Doom, and it was. But I'm talking about like big blowout. So it was Legion of Doom versus don't tell me.
Denver?
Thank you. Versus the best offense ever in the history of the NFL with Peyton Manning leading the way, and they got whooped. And MVP was Mr. Billy Wagner, I believe it was.
Malcolm Smith.
Malcolm Smith. Thank you. I knew it was defensive man. Either way, came out randomly, and it's because it was a blowout. So $20 minimum on that. That's what I'm throwing on it. But other than that, Ant, I'm gonna give you the spotlight. Let people know where they can catch you at.
What's up, everybody? If you would like more Knicks slander and Giant slander and Yankee slander, please follow me at Twitter at NoTipperSports. Just like it's spelled, I just wanted to say, just like it sounds, No Tipper Sports, NOTIPPERSPORTS. I just wanted to say, shout out to you guys for having me on. I definitely noticed the hard work and everything else that goes into it. Also doing this as well as your 9 to 5 and whatnot. So I just want to give a huge shout out to you guys for having me on. You guys are awesome. Shout out to Off the Ball podcast. Chris LeBron, you guys are doing great things. Looking forward to being back within a couple of weeks. Hopefully we could talk about a nice Odell Super Bowl champion, Aaron Donald MVP, and I look forward to being back here soon. I appreciate you guys as always, and thank you for having me.
All righty, Jerk. You want to go on the spotlight? Everyone knows you. By the way, you're thinking us. Thank me. It's my show now, okay? Jerk left. He just likes to show up once in a while, all right? So you're welcome. But, Jerk.
Well, Ant mentioned 9 to 5. I wish I worked 9 to 5 right now. I wish I worked the goddamn 9 to 5 right now, man. I wish. No, you can follow me at JerkK40. Those are my personal social handles. I appear throughout the network. I'll appear with Chris. I'll appear with Jeff. I got to get on a show with Mo again eventually where me and him could chop it up and talk whatever. But yeah, and kind of like Ant mentioned, always love having Ant. He's a friend of the show. James likes to be a little bit pessimistic. I run the show now. That's why he's always texting me every time about it, asking questions and stuff. But no, in all seriousness, keep following Bunts and Bruises. This is our brainchild. I sent it to James yesterday. Yesterday was the 1-year anniversary of the first time me and Bars ever did a show. It was the Super Bowl show after last year's Super Bowl between the Bucs and the Chiefs. We talked that. We talked the coaching hires from last season. And what we thought about them from Staley to Salah and all those hires, which is pretty wild to listen back to a little bit. and the journey it's been a year, Bars. Absolutely love it. Ironic timing with the show today. I don't know if you planned it on purpose or not, but that was cool. And of course, all this happens because of here at the Off the Ball Network. You got to follow the Off the Ball Network, follow the amazing shows. Earlier today, Jeff did an awesome show. Mo's always putting out great content. Jelani and Thad on what the game means to me. They're also live right now. Actually, they're talking a little bit Super Bowl, talking some NBA. Those guys are phenomenal. Like, just follow the network, just support the network. Listen to everyone. Like, comment, share, subscribe, all their stuff. Like, seriously, this is a special group of guys, and it just keeps getting better day by day.
All right, gentlemen. Thank you for coming on. As always, don't be racist. Next week, we're most likely going to talk New York Giants again. Woo! Chair almost broke. Exciting stuff. Either way, love you, America. Take care. Brush your hair.